The scent of burning sage and moonflower incense crawled through the air, thick as honey and twice as cloying. My eyes watered as I tried to keep myself upright among the sea of bodies in the ceremony hall. The full moon's light filtered through stained glass windows, casting prismatic shadows across faces beautiful enough to break hearts, none of which bothered to look my way. I shouldn't have been there at all. The annual mating ceremony wasn't meant for someone like me, a half-blood with no pack allegiance, and certainly no prospects among the elite werewolf clans gathered to find their perfect matches. Yet there I stood, pressed against the cool stone wall in my borrowed dress, a favor to my childhood friend Elena, who couldn't bear attending alone. "Just blend in," she had whispered, squeezing my hand before disappearing into the crowd of purebloods. "No one will even notice you're here." She was right. No one ever noticed me. In a world where strength, dominance, and bloodline determined your worth, I was practically invisible. My mother's human blood had diluted whatever wolf gifts should have been my birthright, leaving me with enhanced senses but no ability to shift, a genetic dead end in a society obsessed with producing powerful heirs. I clutched the small silver pendant around my neck, my grandmother's parting gift before she died. "Your heart sees what others cannot," she'd told me. "That's your true strength, Eliana." The pendant was simple, a crescent moon embracing a tiny star. Nothing compared to the ornate jewelry adorning the necks of potential mates around me, but its familiar weight against my skin kept me anchored. The ceremony had been dragging on for hours. The elders moved through ancient rituals meant to heighten instincts and draw compatible souls together, while I fought to stifle yawn after yawn. My body felt heavier with each passing minute. The sleepless nights spent helping Elena prepare finally catching up with me. I hadn't meant to close my eyes, just for a moment, I told myself, leaning against a shadowed alcove as the ceremonial drums pulsed like heartbeats, just one moment to rest. When I opened my eyes again, the world had changed. Gone was the crowded hall with its suffocating perfumes and pretension. Instead, I found myself in a chamber so vast and luxurious, it stole what little breath remained in my lungs. Moonlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating walls lined with ancient texts and weapons that spoke of battles won and bloodlines defended. But it was the heat that registered first. The overwhelming, all-consuming heat of the body beneath mine. My cheek rested against a chest broad as a mountain and twice as hard, rising and falling with each steady breath. An arm like steel wrapped around my waist, holding me in place with casual possessiveness. I froze, terrified to move, to breathe, to do anything that might wake the man whose lap had somehow become my resting place. Not just any man, even half asleep. My senses recognized what my mind refused to accept, the distinctive scent of winter pine and thunderstorms, the subtle pulse of raw power that made the air around him shimmer like heat waves, the silver streak in otherwise pitch-black hair that fell across a face cut from granite. Rhys Blackthorn, the Alpha King, sovereign of all 7 territories, the most feared, respected, and desired shifter in our world, a man whose mere presence made alphas from ancient bloodlines bow their heads and bare their necks. And I was drooling on his shirt. Panic seized me, but before I could disentangle myself from this impossible situation, his eyes snapped open. Eyes the color of Arctic ice, so pale blue they appeared almost white in the moonlight. And now they were fixed directly on me. "You're awake." His voice was midnight and gravel, the kind that resonated in your bones rather than your ears. Not a question. A statement that required no response, which was fortunate because my tongue had forgotten how to form words. I scrambled backward, only to find myself more firmly secured against him. One large hand splayed across my lower back. I'm so sorry," I stammered, mortification heating my cheeks. "I don't know how I got here. I must have fallen asleep during the ceremony, and someone must have... This has to be some kind of mistake, is it?" Something dangerous flickered in those impossible eyes. His head tilted slightly, nostrils flaring as he drew in my scent deliberately, analyzing. "What's your name?" "Eliana," I whispered, unable to look away from his gaze despite every instinct screaming to submit, to lower my eyes as was proper before an alpha of his stature. Eliana, he repeated, as if tasting the syllables. His expression gave nothing away, carved from stone and just as telling. And you believe your presence here is a mistake? The question felt like a trap. Everything about this felt like a trap. Or a dream from which I'd wake to find myself still slumped in that alcove, the ceremony continuing without a ripple of notice for my absence. It has to be, I said, finding a shred of courage. I'm nobody. A half-blood who can't even shift. I wasn't meant to be selected by anyone tonight, let alone. The words died in my throat. Something shifted in his expression. A flash of intrigue, perhaps even amusement, there and gone so quickly I might have imagined it. The hand not holding me in place reached up, one finger tracing the silver pendant at my throat with surprising gentleness. This is old magic, he said quietly. Where did you get it? My grandmother, before she died. I swallowed hard, uncomfortable with his focus on my one treasure. It's nothing valuable. I wouldn't say that. His eyes returned to mine, searching for something I couldn't name. Do you know what happened tonight, Eliana? Before I could answer, the massive double doors to the chamber burst open. A man with military posture and scars crisscrossing his face strode in, stopping short at the sight of us. His expression morphed from urgency to shock to something like grudging recognition. My king, he said, bowing his head slightly. The council is demanding answers. The other candidates are displeased. Rhys didn't look away from me as he answered. Tell the council they'll have their answers tomorrow. Tonight is no longer about them. The man hesitated, glancing between us. And the Lady Serena, she's threatening to, is no longer my concern. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Leave us, Dominic. The man, Dominic, nodded once and retreated, though not before giving me a look that contained equal parts curiosity and warning. As the doors closed again, silence expanded between us like a living thing. I became acutely aware of every point where our bodies connected, of the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath my palm, of the slight roughness of his finger as it continued to trace the outline of my pendant. You still haven't answered my question? He finally said. Do you know what happened tonight? I shook my head, mute with confusion. The mating ceremony isn't just tradition, he explained, his voice low and measured as if speaking to a frightened animal. It's ancient magic. When an unmated alpha of royal blood participates, the magic seeks their true mate, the one soul that complements theirs completely. His eyes never left mine. I've attended 15 ceremonies. Never felt so much as a pull toward anyone. Understanding began to dawn, horrible and impossible. No, I whispered. I'm not. And yet, he continued as if I hadn't spoken. Tonight, I felt it, like a thread pulling taut around my soul. I followed it through the crowd, searching for its source. His lips curved into something not quite a smile, only to find a golden-haired woman sound asleep against the wall, dead to the world while magic shook the foundations of the hall. I don't understand, I said, though a terrible suspicion was forming. The elders were scandalized, of course. A half-blood, unable to shift, no political advantage whatsoever. Each word should have been an insult, but his tone held no judgment, only a kind of wondering curiosity. They insisted there must be a mistake, that I should ignore the pull and choose a suitable candidate. My heart threatened to pound out of my chest. And what did you say? The not-quite smile deepened, revealing the edge of a canine too sharp to be entirely human. I told them that the Alpha King doesn't make mistakes, and then I carried you here while they argued among themselves. You carried me? The image of the most powerful man in our world carrying my unconscious form through crowds of stunned onlookers made me want to sink through the floor. You didn't so much as stir, he said, and now there was definite amusement in his voice. Though you did hold rather fiercely to my shirt when I tried to set you down. Mortification burned through me. This isn't happening. There's been some cosmic error. I need to go back to what? My tiny apartment? My job shelving books at the university library? The half-life I'd carved out on the fringes of both human and werewolf societies? No. The single word held the weight of mountains. The ceremony doesn't make mistakes either, little one. The endearment sent an unwelcome shiver down my spine. You don't even know me. I know enough. His hand moved from my pendant to cut my cheek, thumb brushing across my lower lip in a touch so light it might have been imagined. I know you're brave enough to attend a ceremony where you thought you'd be unwelcome. I know you're loyal enough to accompany a friend, even when it brought you no advantage. I know you treasure a gift of old magic without understanding its worth. His eyes seemed to see through me, past all defenses. And I know that when every instinct tells you to look away from me, you don't. That's more rare than you might think, Eliana. A knock at the door interrupted whatever response might have formed on my lips. Rhys's expression darkened. "Enter," he called, his arm still firmly around my waist. A woman glided in, her beauty so severe it was almost painful to look at directly. Her white blonde hair was pulled into an intricate crown of braids, her gown shimmering like liquid mercury in the moonlight. Her eyes, when they landed on me, narrowed to slits. "So it's true," she said, her voice musical despite the venom it contained. "Rhys Blackthorn, Alpha King and protector of bloodlines, has chosen a half-breed who can't even answer the moon's call." I flinched, but Rhys's arm tightened around me. "Be very careful with your next words, Serena," he warned, each syllable carrying deadly promise. "You speak of my mate." The word hung in the air between us. Mate, the sacred bond that went beyond marriage, beyond politics, beyond reason. A connection that, once acknowledged, could never be severed except by death. And he had just claimed it with me. Serena's perfect features contorted with fury. "This makes a mockery of everything we stand for. The Council will never accept." "The Council serves at my pleasure," Rhys interrupted, his voice still quiet but thrumming with authority that made the air vibrate. "As do you." She took a step forward, desperation replacing anger. "We've been allies for centuries. This union would have secured the Eastern Territories for generations. Think of the strength our bloodlines would create. Politics doesn't concern me tonight." His gaze never wavered from her, though his body remained curved protectively around mine. "You should leave, Serena." For a moment, I thought she might attack. Her fingers curled into claws, her body trembling with suppressed rage. Then, just as quickly, a mask of cold dignity slipped into place. "You will regret this," she said softly, "when you realize what you've thrown away for this." Her gaze raked over me dismissively before returning to him. "Some mistakes can't be undone, Rhys." With that, she turned and swept from the room, the door closing behind her with ominous finality. The silence that followed felt heavy with consequence. I realized I had been holding my breath and released it shakily. "She's right," I said, finding my voice at last. "You've just made an enemy over a cosmic misunderstanding. Whatever the ceremony thinks it detected between us, it can't be real. You should go after her. Tell her there's been a mistake." His eyes, when they returned to mine, had changed. Pupils expanded so the icy blue was nearly swallowed by black. "Do you feel it, Eliana? The pull, the certainty?" I wanted to lie, to deny the strange magnetic awareness that had been growing since I woke in his arms, but something told me he would know. "I feel something," I admitted reluctantly, "but that doesn't make it right, or sensible, or anything but a disaster for you politically." His laugh was unexpected, a low, rich sound that transformed his severe features into something devastatingly handsome. "Politics has been my life for 2 centuries. Perhaps it's time for something else to take priority." The casual mention of his age, so much greater than I had imagined, made my head spin. I knew alphas lived longer than humans, their lifespans extended by magic and the strength of their wolf spirits, but 2 centuries? You don't know the first thing about me, I protested weakly. "I have time to learn." He shifted, and suddenly I was no longer in his lap, but beside him on what I now realized was an enormous divan, though his hand remained at the small of my back. "We have time, Eliana, if you want it." And there it was, the choice I never expected to have. The power I never thought would be mine. "What happens now?" I asked, unable to fully process that this moment, this question, was real. Something like hope flickered in his gaze. "Now," he said, We begin. Sleep eluded me that night. How could it not, when my world had been turned inside out in a matter of hours? Rhys had escorted me to a suite adjacent to his own. A concession to propriety, he'd explained, though his reluctance to leave me had been palpable. The rooms were larger than my entire apartment, decorated in shades of midnight blue and silver that somehow felt both regal and soothing. Rest, he'd said, his fingers lingering on mine a moment too long. Tomorrow will bring challenges enough, an understatement if I'd ever heard one. I paced the plush carpet as dawn crept through the windows, casting the unfamiliar room in soft gold. My borrowed dress from the ceremony lay discarded on a chair, replaced by silk pajamas I'd found laid out on the bed. They were too fine, too soft against my skin, a constant reminder that I didn't belong here among such luxury. A gentle knock at the door startled me from my thoughts. A young woman entered, her movements quick and efficient as she placed a tray of breakfast on a small table near the balcony. "Good morning, my lady," she said, dipping into a slight curtsy that made me cringe inwardly. "His Majesty requested I bring you breakfast, and inform you that the council has convened. He asks that you join them at your convenience, at my convenience, as if I had any choice in the matter." "Thank you," I managed. "What's your name?" She looked startled by the question. "Lily, my lady." "I'm Eliana," I said. "Just Eliana. No lady necessary." A small smile touched her lips. "As you wish, my Eliana. There are clothes in the wardrobe that should fit. If you need anything else, just pull the bell cord." She gestured toward a braided rope near the bed before departing with another slight bow. The wardrobe revealed an array of garments in soft blues and greens, all precisely my size. I chose the simplest option, a sage-colored dress with minimal embellishment, and tried not to think about how Rhys had known what would fit me. After forcing down a few bites of food to settle my nervous stomach, I ventured into the hallway. 2 guards immediately straightened to attention. "I'm supposed to meet the king," I said, the title feeling strange on my tongue. "For a council meeting?" "This way, my lady," said the taller guard, his expression carefully neutral as he led me through a maze of corridors. We stopped before imposing double doors carved with scenes of wolves running beneath a full moon. The guard announced my arrival, and the heavy doors swung open to reveal a scene straight from a medieval painting. A massive round table dominated the center of the room, around which sat 12 people. No, not people. Alphas. Their power hummed in the air like electricity before a storm, a tangible force that made my skin prickle. At the head of the table, Rhys rose to his feet. Gone was any trace of the almost gentle man from last night. The Alpha King who stood before the council radiated authority and deadly control. His black clothes were severe, unadorned except for a silver pin at his collar in the shape of a wolf's head. The silver streak in his hair seemed to catch the light as he moved toward me. Every eye in the room tracked his progress, then shifted to me. I fought the urge to shrink back, to apologize for my existence, for the disruption I'd apparently caused. "Eliana," Rhys said, his voice formal but his eyes warming as they met mine. "Thank you for joining us." He extended a hand, and I took it without thinking, allowing him to guide me to an empty chair at his right hand. Serena sat across from me, her eyes chips of green ice in her perfect face. "Members of the council," Rhys addressed the room, his hand still covering mine on the table's surface. "As you are aware, last night's mating ceremony yielded an unexpected result. The ancient magic recognized my true mate in Eliana Reed." Murmurs rippled around the table. An older man with silver hair and a face lined by experience spoke first. "Your Majesty, while we respect the ceremony's traditions, we must consider the practical implications." His gaze flicked to me apologetically. "The lady's heritage presents certain challenges." "Does it, Lord Thorne?" Rhys's tone remained conversational, but something dangerous lurked beneath. "Elaborate." Lord Thorne shifted uncomfortably. "An Alpha King's mate traditionally helps strengthen our bloodlines. She serves as diplomat and warrior both. With all due respect to Lady Eliana, her human blood makes her no less worthy," Rhys finished. "The ceremony recognized what none of us could see. I trust its wisdom, even if you do not." "It's not about worthiness," Serena cut in, her voice honey-sweet, but her eyes hard. It's about capability. The role of the Alpha King's mate demands qualities that a half-blood simply cannot possess. No shifting ability, diminished strength, shortened lifespan. Her gaze slid to me, triumph in her small smile. You'll be old and gray while he remains unchanged. How is that a true mating? The words struck like physical blows. I hadn't even considered the lifespan difference. Hadn't had time to process any of this. That's enough, Rhys growled, the first crack in his composed facade. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. I squeezed his hand, surprised by my own boldness. No, it's all right. I faced Serena directly. You've made fair points. I can't shift. I'm not as physically strong as a pureblood. And yes, I'll age faster than he will. I took a steadying breath, but whatever force chose me must have seen something worthwhile, something that matters more than those limitations. Pretty words, Serena sneered, but they don't change reality. Reality, said another voice, is more complex than bloodlines and physical strength. A woman with warm brown skin and eyes like amber regarded me thoughtfully. I'm Nora, head of the Eastern Council, and I'm curious. What do you bring to this union, Eliana Reed? What makes you worthy to stand beside our king? The question wasn't hostile, merely direct. Still, panic fluttered in my chest. What could I possibly offer that would justify my presence here? I don't know if I am worthy, I admitted, the honesty burning my throat. I never asked for this, but I do know that where others see weakness in my human blood, I see perspective. I've lived in both worlds. I understand what it means to be an outsider, to build bridges where others see only walls. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. My heart sees what others cannot. Perhaps that's what your magic recognized. Silence fell over the table. Rhys's grip on my hand tightened almost painfully. Nora's lips curved into a slight smile. Interesting. This is absurd, Serena snapped. We're entertaining the ramblings of a half-breed over centuries of tradition and political necessity. The Eastern Alliance can be secured through other means, Rhys interrupted. Trade agreements, military alliances. Your family doesn't need my bloodline to remain powerful, Serena. The council requires time to deliberate, Lord Thorne said diplomatically. While the mating ceremony's choice must be respected, there are protocols to consider. Tests of compatibility. Tests? I glanced at Rhys, whose expression had darkened further. The old ways are clear, he said. My wolf has recognized its mate. There is nothing to deliberate. And yet, said a harsh voice from the far end of the table, deliberate we shall. A man with a face like a hawk and eyes just as predatory leaned forward. 3 days, as tradition dictates. 3 trials to prove the compatibility of souls. If she passes, even I will welcome her as our queen. Murmurs of agreement spread through the council. Rhys's jaw clenched, but I could see the calculation behind his eyes. And if I refuse these trials? I asked quietly. The hawk-faced man smiled without warmth. Then you admit this matching was a mistake, and the king is free to choose a more suitable mate, one who isn't afraid to prove her worth. It was a trap, expertly laid, refuse, and I confirmed every doubt about my inadequacy. Accept, and I faced challenges designed for pure-blood wolves, not half-human women who couldn't even shift. But looking around the table at the faces ranging from hostile to curious, I realized this was about more than just me. Rhys's reputation, his authority, they were at stake because of me, because he'd honored the ceremony's choice instead of political expediency. I accept, I said, before I could reconsider. Rhys's head whipped toward me, surprise and something like fear flashing across his features. Eliana. 3 trials, I continued, meeting the hawk-faced man's gaze directly. But on one condition. They must be tests any wolf, shifted or not, could potentially complete. No trials requiring physical transformation. Calculating eyes assessed me. Agreed. The first trial will commence tomorrow at dawn. The trial of instinct. The council adjourned shortly after, leaving Rhys and me alone in the vast chamber. The moment the doors closed, he rounded on me. Why did you agree to this? He demanded, pacing like the predator he was. These trials are designed for failure. They'll craft them specifically to exploit your human limitations. What choice did I have? I stood my ground despite the intimidating intensity radiating from him. If I refused, I'd have confirmed every suspicion they have about me being unworthy. You have nothing to prove to them, he growled. Don't I? I challenged. You've upended your entire political structure for me, a stranger. The least I can do is try to justify that decision. He stopped pacing, his expression shifting to something almost tender. You owe me nothing, Eliana. The ceremony chose you for reasons beyond politics. Then help me understand those reasons, I said softly. Because right now, all I see is chaos I've caused by falling asleep at the wrong place, wrong time. Rhys closed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hands coming up to frame my face with surprising gentleness. There is no wrong place or time for finding one's mate. But if you insist on facing these trials, then I will help prepare you, whatever advantage I can give within the rules. A knock interrupted the moment. Dominic, the scarred man from the previous night, entered with a grim expression. Your Majesty, there's been an incident at the eastern border. The delegation from Lady Serena's territory is demanding an audience. Rhys's hands fell from my face, his expression closing like a shutter. Of course they are. He turned to me. Forgive me. This requires immediate attention. Dominic will escort you back to your chambers, and I'll come to you as soon as I can. Just like that, the king replaced the man, duty eclipsing everything else. I nodded my understanding, trying to ignore the hollow feeling spreading through my chest. As Dominic led me back through the corridors, I caught him studying me with open curiosity. He's never looked at anyone the way he looks at you, he said abruptly. I blinked in surprise. You've known him long? 2 centuries, give or take. A hint of a smile softened his scarred face. He was different once. Before the crown, before the politics. You remind him of that time. Before I could ask what he meant, we arrived at my door. Dominic bowed slightly and left me alone with my thoughts and the looming shadow of tomorrow's trial. The trial of instinct. Whatever that meant, I suspected it would require more of me than I had to give. But as I touched my grandmother's pendant, I remembered her final words to me. When the moment comes to choose between safety and truth, choose truth. It's the harder path, but the only one worth walking. Tomorrow, I would begin that walk. Dawn arrived with cruel swiftness. I had spent most of the night tossing in sheets too soft, my mind racing through every possible interpretation of the trial of instinct. Rhys never came. Whatever crisis Serena's delegation had brought must have consumed his attention through the night. Lily appeared just as the first pale light crept through my windows, her expression a careful mask of neutrality. It's time, Myla. Eliana. The council awaits in the western courtyard. She helped me into clothes I hadn't seen before. Fitted leather pants, a simple tunic of deep blue, and boots made for practicality rather than fashion. The outfit felt strangely right, allowing freedom of movement I wasn't accustomed to in my usual attire. Do you know what this trial entails? I asked, as she braided my hair away from my face. Her hands paused for the briefest moment. It's not my place to say. Please, I whispered. Anything might help. Lily's eyes met mine in the mirror, conflict visible in their depths. The trial of instinct tests your connection to your inner wolf, the ability to sense danger, to trust what cannot be seen or heard. She secured the end of my braid with a leather cord. That's all I know. A test of my wolf instincts, the wolf I didn't have. Fantastic. The western courtyard was not what I expected. Instead of the manicured gardens I had glimpsed from my window, this was a wild space, almost a meadow, bordering a dense forest. The council members stood in a loose semicircle, their expressions ranging from open hostility to careful assessment. Rhys stood apart from them, his face haggard with exhaustion, but his eyes alert as they found mine. He started toward me, only to be stopped by Lord Thorne's hand on his arm, and a murmured word. His jaw clenched visibly, but he remained where he was. No help from that quarter then. Whatever this trial was, I would face it alone. The hawk-faced man, whose name I had learned was Aldrich, stepped forward. The trial of instinct is simple in concept, complex in execution. Within the forest lies a single white stone marked with the royal crest. You have until midday to retrieve it and return to this courtyard. I frowned. That's it? Just find a stone? His smile was all predator. The forest is vast, the stone small, and you will not be alone among the trees. He gestured, and guards approached leading 3 wolves on heavy chains. Actual wolves, not shifters in wolf form. Their eyes gleamed with unnatural intelligence, their silver-gray coats rippling with muscle. These are the king's sentinels, trained to guard the borders of his territory against all intruders. Today, they guard the stone. My blood turned to ice. You expect me to outrun wolves? I thought we agreed no trials requiring transformation. You need not outrun them, Aldrich replied. Merely avoid them. Or, his gaze slid meaningfully to Rhys. Convince them you belong there. A true mate of the Alpha King would carry his scent, his essence. The wolves should recognize it, if your bond is genuine. If my pulse hammered in my throat. This is absurd, Rhys growled, stepping forward despite Thorn's restraining hand. The sentinels are trained to attack anything that doesn't carry my direct command. Then command them, Serena suggested sweetly. If you're so certain of this match, order them to let her pass. Rhys's expression darkened. You know that's not how the trial works. My commands must be given before the test begins, not tailored to the participant. Precisely, Aldrich agreed. The standard command is clear. Protect the stone from all who approach. If your mate truly carries your essence, they will sense it and yield to her. If not, he shrugged. Well, our healers are excellent. A wave of nausea rolled through me. This wasn't a test. It was a death sentence. Nora stepped forward, her amber eyes concerned. This goes too far, Aldrich. The girl can't even shift if threatened. The rules were agreed upon, he countered. No trials requiring transformation. This doesn't. It simply tests the connection that supposedly exists between them. He turned to me. Unless you wish to withdraw, and there it was. The trap snapping shut. Withdraw, and prove myself unworthy. Continue, and risk being torn apart. I looked to Rhys, whose eyes had taken on a feral glow, his body vibrating with barely contained rage. But beneath that, I saw something else. Fear. For me. My hand found my grandmother's pendant, its familiar contours grounding me. Your heart sees what others cannot. I accept the trial, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Rhys moved then, crossing to me in swift strides before anyone could stop him. He took my face in his hands, his touch gentle despite the fury radiating from him. Listen to me, he said, his voice low and urgent. The wolves respond to fear. Show none, even if you must lie to your own body. Move slowly. Make no sudden gestures. If they approach, stop completely and lower your eyes, not in submission, but as an equal acknowledging their territory. His thumbs brushed my cheeks, and I realized they came away wet. I hadn't even known I was crying. Trust your instincts, he whispered. Whatever human blood runs in your veins, you are still wolf enough for this. Before I could respond, he pressed his lips to my forehead, a gesture so tender it stole my breath. Then he stepped back, his expression once again composed into regal detachment as he addressed Aldrich. If she is harmed, there will be consequences. The threat hung in the air, cold and absolute. Even Aldrich seemed to pale slightly. The wolves were released into the forest, given a head start to position themselves. Then it was my turn. With one last look at Rhys, I stepped into the trees. The forest closed around me like a living entity, branches reaching overhead to blot out the morning light. My human eyes struggled to adjust to the dimness, while my slightly enhanced senses strained for any hint of danger. I moved cautiously, placing each foot with deliberate care to minimize noise. The forest floor was soft with decades of fallen leaves, at least making silent passage easier. But which direction should I go? The courtyard bordered the forest's edge for at least half a mile in either direction. The stone could be anywhere. Trust your instincts, Rhys had said. But what instincts? I had no wolf to guide me, no preternatural connection to the wild. Or did I? I closed my eyes, shutting out the visual distractions. Instead of trying to see or hear, I focused on feeling, the subtle currents of air against my skin, the faint vibration of the earth beneath my feet, the quiet hum of life surrounding me. Something tugged at my awareness, not a sound or sight, but a sensation. a rightness in one direction versus another. Without questioning it, I followed the pull, moving deeper into the forest. Time became fluid as I walked, every sense hyper-alert for signs of the sentinel wolves. Twice I froze at the sound of movement nearby, pressing myself against tree trunks and waiting until the forest resumed its normal rhythms. The tug grew stronger as I approached a small clearing where sunlight dappled the ground. In its center stood a rock formation, and atop it, gleaming white against the dark stone, was a small object that could only be the marked stone. Too easy, warned a voice in my mind. Much too easy. I scanned the clearing, searching for any sign of the wolves. Nothing moved, yet every instinct screamed of eyes watching, waiting. The sentinels were here, hidden but present. Remembering Reese's words, I kept my movements slow and deliberate as I entered the clearing. No sudden gestures, no running. I approached the rock formation step by careful step. A low growl froze me in place. From behind the rocks emerged one of the sentinels, its silver coat shimmering in the dappled light, teeth bared in warning. It was enormous, much larger than a natural wolf, its shoulders reaching my waist. Those intelligent eyes fixed on me with predatory focus. My heart threatened to pound out of my chest, but I forced my breathing to remain even. Show no fear, even if you must lie to your own body. I stopped completely and lowered my eyes as Reese had instructed, not looking down in submission, but slightly to the side as an equal might. The growling continued, but the wolf made no move to attack. After what felt like an eternity, I risked a glance upward. The wolf had moved closer, close enough that I could feel its hot breath against my hand. It was scenting me, trying to determine if I was friend or foe. Reese's scent. That's what Aldrich had said. If I truly carried Reese's essence, the wolves would recognize it. But how could I? We'd barely touched beyond that brief moment in his chambers and his hands on my face before the trial. The wolf's growl deepened, its muscles bunching as it prepared to lunge. Without thinking, I reached for my pendant, my grandmother's parting gift. Your heart sees what others cannot. As my fingers closed around it, warmth spread through my palm, traveling up my arm and throughout my body. The wolf paused, its head tilting in confusion. I took a chance. I mean no harm, I said softly. I'm here for the stone, that's all. To my astonishment, the wolf sat back on its haunches, watching me with those two intelligent eyes. Not yielding, exactly, but no longer threatening. Keeping my movements slow and my eyes on the wolf, I approached the rocks. The white stone sat in plain view, small enough to fit in my palm, etched with a symbol I recognized from Reese's collar pin, the royal crest. As my fingers closed around it, movement at the edge of the clearing caught my eye. The other two sentinels had emerged, forming a loose semicircle with the first. My path back was blocked. I clutched the stone, its surface warming strangely against my skin. I have what I came for, I told the wolves, feeling slightly ridiculous for speaking to them as if they could understand. I'll leave your territory now. None of them moved. Neither attacking nor yielding, they simply watched me with unnerving focus. An idea formed, risky, potentially suicidal, but the only option I could see. If they truly responded to Reese's essence as Aldrich claimed, perhaps I could use the stone itself as proof of my right to be there. It carried his crest, his authority. I held the stone out toward the wolves, palm open. See? I bear your master's mark. Let me pass. For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, as one, the wolves stepped aside, creating a narrow path between them. Not believing my luck, I moved forward cautiously, the stone still extended before me like a talisman. Step by careful step, I passed between the wolves, feeling their eyes tracking my every movement. Once clear of them, instinct screamed at me to run. I resisted, maintaining my slow, deliberate pace until I was well into the trees. Only then did I quicken my steps, moving as swiftly as I dared back toward the courtyard. The journey that had taken hours on the way in seemed to pass in minutes on the return. Soon I could see daylight through the trees ahead, the courtyard just beyond the forest's edge. I emerged into the sunlight, stone clutched tight in my fist, to find the council members in various states of shock. Reese stood exactly where I'd left him, though the rigid set of his shoulders suggested it had taken considerable restraint to remain there. His eyes found mine, relief washing over his features so nakedly that something in my chest constricted. I walked directly to him, ignoring the murmurs of the council, and held out the stone. "I believe this belongs to you," I said, trying for lightness despite my trembling limbs. Rhys took it, his fingers brushing mine deliberately. "How?" he asked quietly, for my ears alone. Before I could answer, slow applause broke the silence. Nora stepped forward, genuine respect in her amber eyes. "Well done," she said. "Few have completed the trial of instinct so efficiently, even those born to the shift." Aldrich looked less pleased, his hawkish features pinched with suspicion. "The sentinels let you pass. Why?" I met his gaze steadily. "Perhaps they recognized what you cannot, that the ceremony made no mistake." His eyes narrowed. "Perhaps. Or perhaps there are other forces at work here." His gaze flickered to my pendant. "The second trial will tell us more, the trial of strength, to be held at dawn tomorrow." He smiled thinly. "Rest well, Half-Blood. You'll need your instincts. Again." As the council dispersed, Rhys placed his hand at the small of my back, guiding me toward the palace. The moment we were inside, away from prying eyes, he pulled me into an alcove, his hands cupping my face as he searched for any sign of injury. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, his voice rough with concern. "I'm fine," I assured him. "Frightened half to death, but unharmed." Relief softened his features. "How did you do it?" "The sentinels never yield to outsiders." I touched my pendant. "I'm not entirely sure. I just felt my way through. Trusted what I couldn't see or understand." His eyes dropped to the silver crescent and star. "That pendant, there's more to it than you know, isn't there?" Before I could respond, Dominic appeared at the end of the corridor. "Your Majesty, forgive the interruption. The Eastern delegation has returned with new demands." Rhys's expression hardened, though his thumb traced a gentle path along my cheekbone before he stepped back. "We'll continue this later. Go rest, Eliana. The trial of strength will demand even more from you." As he walked away, the weight of what I'd accomplished, and what still lay ahead, settled over me. One trial down, 2 to go. And the hardest, I suspected, were yet to come. Block 4. Sleep came easier that night, my body exhausted from the trial, and the adrenaline that had sustained me through it, but my dreams were haunted by silver wolves, with knowing eyes, and a pendant that glowed with inner light. I woke just before dawn, my grandmother's voice echoing in my mind. "Your heart sees what others cannot." What had she known that I didn't? I sat up, reaching for the pendant that never left my neck. In the dim pre-dawn light, it looked ordinary, a simple silver crescent embracing a tiny star. Yet in the forest, I could have sworn it had warmed against my skin, almost as if responding to my need. A soft knock interrupted my contemplation. I expected Lily but found Rhys instead, his tall frame filling the doorway. Dark shadows beneath his eyes suggested another night without rest, yet his gaze was sharp as it swept over me. "May I come in?" he asked, unusually formal. I nodded, suddenly conscious of my sleep-rumpled appearance. He entered, closing the door quietly behind him. "I wanted to see you before the trial." He remained near the door, maintaining a careful distance that hadn't been there before. "The trial of strength is not what it seems. What does that mean?" I pulled my knees to my chest, wrapping my arms around them. "Strength, to our kind, isn't merely physical. It's the capacity to endure, to protect what matters most." His eyes held mine, intense and unblinking. "They will test your limits today, Eliana. All of them." A chill crept down my spine. "How?" "I don't know the specifics. The trials are crafted individually for each candidate." His jaw tightened. "But Aldrich was suspiciously interested in your pendant after yesterday. I believe he suspects external magic at work." I touched the silver crescent. It was my grandmother's. She gave it to me before she died. "Your grandmother." Rhys moved closer, his interest visibly sharpening. "Who was she?" "Just a human woman, as far as I knew. My mother's mother." I frowned, thinking back, though she always seemed to know things. About people, about the future sometimes. I assumed she was just observant. Reese sat at the edge of the bed, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. May I? His fingers hovered near my pendant. I nodded, holding still as he lifted the pendant gently, examining it in his palm without removing it from my neck. His touch sent a whisper of awareness across my skin. "This is old magic," he murmured, echoing his words from our first night, older than the werewolf bloodlines. "It's protective magic, meant to shield the wearer from harm." His eyes lifted to mine, but such protection comes at a cost. Always. "What cost?" I whispered. "That depends on who crafted it and why." He released the pendant, his fingers brushing the hollow of my throat. "Your grandmother may have been more than she appeared." The thought was both thrilling and unsettling. Had she known this moment would come? Had she prepared me for it in ways I hadn't recognized? "Whatever strength the pendant gives you," Reese continued, "Aldrich will try to separate you from it today. He'll call it evening the playing field, ensuring no external magic influences the trial." My hand closed protectively around the silver crescent. "I can't take it off," I promised her. Something like approval flickered in his eyes. "Good. Stand firm on that. As your potential mate, I can invoke the right of personal tokens, one item of significance allowed during trials. They cannot force you to remove it without breaking ancient laws of courtship. Personal tokens. Potential mate. The term sent a flutter through my chest that had nothing to do with fear. Since the mating ceremony, we'd been swept along by politics and trials, with barely a moment to consider what being mates might actually mean between us. "Reese," I said softly, "why are you doing this? Standing against your counsel, risking political alliances, all for someone you don't even know?" He was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, with deliberate care, he took my hand in his. "200 years is a long time to rule alone," he finally said, his voice low and rough around the edges. "To make every decision based on political advantage rather than personal desire. To be surrounded by people who want your power, your bloodline, but never simply you." His thumb traced circles on my palm. When I felt that pull during the ceremony, it wasn't just magic, it was recognition of something I've been missing without realizing its absence. The raw honesty in his words left me breathless. This wasn't the diplomatic king speaking, but the man beneath the crown. "I'm still not sure I'm what you need," I admitted. Half human, unable to shift, Serena was right about one thing. I'll age and die while you remain as you are. What kind of mate is that? One I'd choose freely, knowing all it entails. His grip tightened on my hand. "But none of that matters if you don't want this, Eliana. The ceremony reveals compatibility, not destiny. You can still walk away." The offer hung between us, startling in its simplicity. I could leave. Return to my small apartment, my quiet job at the university library. My half-life on the margins of both societies. No more trials, no more politics, no more danger, no more Reese, with his ice-blue eyes that warmed when they looked at me. No more feeling like I finally belonged somewhere, to someone. "I'm not walking away," I said, surprising myself with the certainty I felt. "Not until these trials are complete. Then we can decide, together, what comes next." Something like hope kindled in his gaze. He lifted my hand, pressing his lips to my knuckles in a gesture both courtly and deeply intimate. "Together, then." A sharp knock interrupted the moment. Lily entered, stopping short at the sight of the king sitting on my bed. "Forgive me, Your Majesty," she stammered. "The council is gathering for the second trial." Reese stood, his regal mask sliding back into place. "We'll be there shortly." When she'd gone, he turned back to me. "Remember what I said. Whatever happens, don't surrender your pendant. And Eliana," his expression softened briefly, "trust yourself as I do." With that, he was gone, leaving me to prepare for whatever ordeal awaited. The trial of strength took place in the great hall rather than outdoors, the room transformed from its usual grandeur into something more primal. The long tables had been removed, leaving a vast empty space in the center. At one end stood a simple stone pedestal, upon which rested an ornate silver chalice. The council members lined the walls, their expressions varying from Nora's cautious optimism to Aldrich's barely concealed anticipation. Serena stood apart, something triumphant in the curve of her perfect mouth that sent warning signals through my body. Whatever this trial was, she believed it would break me. Rhys took his place on a raised dais, his expression impassive as Aldrich stepped forward to address me. "The trial of strength," he announced, "tests the capacity to endure what must be endured for the sake of the pack, for the sake of the mate bond." His cold eyes fixed on me. "Approach the chalice, half-blood." I moved forward, conscious of every eye tracking my progress. The chalice appeared ordinary enough, crafted of polished silver with engravings similar to the crest on yesterday's white stone. "Drink," Aldrich commanded. I peered into the chalice. A clear liquid filled it halfway, odorless as far as my enhanced senses could detect. "What is it?" "That is part of the trial," he replied with a thin smile. "To trust or not to trust, to endure or to flee." I glanced at Rhys, whose carefully neutral expression told me nothing. This was part of the test. I would receive no guidance from him. My instincts screamed caution. "Before I drink from this cup, I invoke the right of personal tokens," I said, the formal words Rhys had suggested falling awkwardly from my lips. "My pendant remains with me through this trial." Aldrich's expression soured. "You've been coached, I see. She has invoked her right," Nora interjected. "The pendant stays, Aldrich." With a curt nod, he gestured to the chalice once more. "Drink, then. Let us see what strength you possess." I lifted the cup, saying a silent prayer to whatever powers my grandmother might have believed in, and drank. The liquid was tasteless, sliding down my throat like water. For a moment, nothing happened. Then pain exploded through every nerve ending in my body. I collapsed to my knees, the chalice clattering to the stone floor. Fire raced through my veins, a burning agony that stole my breath and vision. Dimly, I heard voices, Rhys shouting, others restraining him. Aldrich's cold pronouncement, "The trial has begun. None may interfere." The pain receded as suddenly as it had come, leaving me gasping on the floor. When I could see again, I found myself no longer in the great hall, but in a misty forest clearing I didn't recognize. No, not a forest. This place had no scent, no substance. An illusion, then, created by whatever I had drunk from the chalice. "Hello, little wolf that isn't." I whirled to find Serena standing behind me, her beauty even more ethereal in this dreamlike place. But something was wrong. Her eyes were completely black, lacking any whites or iris. "What is this?" I demanded. "Where am I?" "Inside," she replied cryptically, circling me like a predator. "Inside your mind, your fears. The potion merely opens the door. What you find here was already waiting." Her not Serena smile widened. "The trial of strength tests your ability to face what you fear most, to endure what cannot be changed." And what might that be? I fought to keep my voice steady. Her form shifted, rippling like water until she stood before me as a mirror image of myself, but stronger, wilder, with eyes that glowed wolf gold. "Me," my doppelganger said. "The wolf you should have been, the mate Rhys deserves." I stepped back, unsettled by this perfect version of myself. "You're not real. I'm what you could have been, without your human weakness." She moved with liquid grace, power evident in every line of her body. "I'm what the Alpha King needs, strength to match his own. Not a half-breed who can't even answer the moon's call." Each word struck like a physical blow, giving voice to my deepest insecurities. "The council is right to test you," she continued, her form shifting again, becoming Rhys, but cold, distant, disappointed. "How could you ever stand beside me as an equal? How could you ever be queen to creatures you can barely understand?" I knew it wasn't really him, yet the sight of Rhys looking at me with such disdain made my chest ache. "This isn't real," I repeated, more to myself than the apparition. "Isn't it?" Not Rhys moved closer. "You know these doubts live in your heart, Eliana. The fear that you'll never be enough, that the ceremony made a cosmic error. That I'll wake one day and realize what a mistake I've made. My legs trembled, weakness spreading through my body. Whatever the potion contained, it was draining my strength as this psychological torture continued. You'll age and die while I remain unchanged, the apparition continued, using Reese's voice to twist the knife deeper. Decades for you will be a mere blink for me. What kind of mate is that? What kind of queen? I sank to my knees, unable to remain standing as the venom of doubt coursed through me. My hand found my pendant, clutching it desperately. The false Reese sneered, "That trinket can't save you from the truth." "Surrender, Eliana. Admit you don't belong here, in this world, or at my side. It would be kinder for us both." Something about his words struck a discordant note. Kinder? Reese, the real Reese, had never spoken of kindness when it came to our connection. He'd spoken of choice, of recognition, of something missing that he'd found in me. The pendant warmed beneath my palm, and with it came clarity. This trial wasn't testing my physical strength. It was testing my conviction, my belief in my own worth, my right to stand beside Reese not as an equal in power, but as an equal in choice. I forced myself to my feet, ignoring the weakness still plaguing my limbs. "You're right about one thing," I told the apparition. "I'm not a wolf. I can't shift, can't hunt beneath the moon, can't offer centuries of life alongside him." The false Reese smiled triumphantly. "But that's not why the ceremony chose me," I continued, finding strength in the truth of my words. "It chose me because what he needs isn't another wolf, another political ally, another extension of his power. He needs what only I can give: perspective, compassion, a bridge between worlds." The apparition's smile faltered. "Pretty lies to comfort yourself." "No. Truth." I stepped forward, my grandmother's words ringing in my ears. "Your heart sees what others cannot. My strength isn't in claws or fangs or immortality. It's in seeing him. Not the Alpha King, not the political force, but Reese, the man who's ruled alone for 2 centuries, making every decision for the good of others and never for himself." The mist surrounding us began to thin, the false Reese's form becoming less substantial. "I may not live centuries," I said, "but I can give him something none of your perfect wolves have offered: the courage to choose for himself, to put his own happiness first, just once. He'll regret it," the fading apparition warned. "When you're old and gray, then that will be his choice too," I interrupted, "and he's strong enough to bear the consequences of it, as am I." The mist dissolved completely, the false Reese disappearing with it. I found myself back in the Great Hall, still on my knees, but now fully present. The council members watched in silence, their expressions ranging from shock to grudging respect. And Reese, the real Reese. His eyes burned with something I couldn't name as he stepped down from the dais, ignoring protocol to kneel before me. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly, his hand gentle as it brushed a strand of hair from my face. "I think so," I managed, though my body still trembled with the aftermath of the potion. Did I pass?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Look around you, Eliana." I followed his gaze to find every council member, even Aldrich, with their heads slightly bowed, a gesture of respect I'd seen directed only toward Reese himself until now. "The trial of strength," Nora announced, her amber eyes warm, "is complete. The candidate has endured." Reese helped me to my feet, his arms supporting me as my legs threatened to give way again. "The final trial," he said to the council, his voice brooking no argument, "will be held tomorrow. For now, my mate requires rest. My mate." The word sent a shiver of something other than fear through me. As Reese led me from the hall, I caught a glimpse of Serena's face, no longer triumphant, but calculating, as if reassessing a battlefield. Whatever the final trial would bring, I suspected she would have a hand in making it as difficult as possible. The next morning dawned cold and clear, a pale winter sun offering light without warmth. I stood at my balcony window, watching my breath fog the glass while my mind raced with possibilities for the final trial. The trial of heart, Nora had called it when she came to check on me the previous evening, the most important test, and potentially the most devastating. A soft knock announced Lily's arrival with breakfast and news. "The trial has been moved," she said, setting down a tray laden with far more food than I could possibly eat. The council chamber instead of the great hall, and it's to be private. Only council members allowed. She hesitated. People are saying Lady Serena requested the change. Of course she had. After witnessing my success in the first 2 trials, Serena would be desperate to control the variables of the third. A private setting meant fewer witnesses if something went wrong, or if rules were bent. Thank you for telling me, Lily. I picked at a piece of bread, my stomach too knotted for real appetite. Has there been any word from the king this morning? Her expression softened. He's been in meetings since before dawn. The Eastern delegation grows more insistent. Translation. Serena's family was applying political pressure, perhaps threatening to withdraw support or resources if their daughter wasn't chosen as mate. I wondered briefly what would happen if I failed this final trial. Would Rhys be free to choose Serena after all? Would that be better for his kingdom? The thought sent a surprising stab of pain through my chest. I dressed with care in the clothes Lily had laid out, a simple gown of deep forest green that somehow made my eyes appear more gold than brown. My pendant lay cool against my skin, its familiar weight a comfort, as I followed a stone-faced guard to the council chamber. Unlike the great hall's soaring ceiling and vast open space, the council chamber was intimate, almost claustrophobic. A circular room with high windows that allowed light but no view, dominated by the round table I remembered from my first meeting with the council. Today, however, the table had been pushed to one side, leaving an open area in the center of the room. The council members stood in a loose semicircle, their expressions grave. Rhys was noticeably absent, as was Serena. "Where is the king?" I asked, unable to keep the edge of worry from my voice. "The Alpha King is not permitted to witness this trial," Aldrich answered, stepping forward. "The trial of heart tests connections that must stand independent of physical presence." Before I could question this further, the door behind me opened. Serena entered, her white blonde hair loose around her shoulders, her gown a shimmering silver that seemed to capture and amplify the winter light. She looked ethereal, untouchable, and utterly determined. "The final trial," Aldrich announced, "tests the depth of connection between potential mates, the strength of the bond that would join not just 2 people, but 2 bloodlines, 2 futures." He gestured to the center of the room. "Both candidates will participate." Both candidates? I looked at Serena in confusion, only to find her smiling with cold confidence. "But there's only one candidate," I objected. "Me." "A technicality," Aldrich dismissed with a wave of his hand. Lady Serena was the council's choice before the ceremony's unexpected outcome. It is only fair that she be allowed to demonstrate the connection she shares with the Alpha King as well. This wasn't right. From everything Rhys had explained, the mating ceremony's choice was sacred, the trials merely a formality to satisfy tradition. Yet here was Aldrich, changing the rules to favor his preferred outcome. "The king wouldn't approve this," I said, looking to Nora for support. Her amber eyes held genuine regret. "The king has no say in the administration of the trials, only in the final choice should a candidate fail. It has always been thus." Serena's smile widened. "Afraid of fair competition, half-blood?" Fair was the last thing this would be, but I recognized the trap. Refuse, and I automatically failed the final trial. Accept, and I faced a test designed for a pure-blood wolf with centuries of experience. "What is the trial exactly?" I asked, buying time while I considered my options. Aldrich pointed to 2 identical silver bowls placed on pedestals at opposite sides of the room. The bowls of reflection contain water from the sacred spring beneath the palace, water with properties that reveal the truth of connections. Each candidate will place a drop of their blood into their bowl. If a true mate bond exists, the water will respond, dramatically. Serena approached one bowl, her movements graceful and confident. "I've known Rhys for over a century," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Our families have been allies for longer than you've been alive, half-blood. What could you possibly offer that compares to such history?" The challenge was clear, the deck thoroughly stacked against me. Yet something about her bravado rang false, a performance for the council rather than genuine confidence. If she and Rhys shared such a profound connection, why hadn't the ceremony recognized it? I moved to the second bowl, steeling myself for whatever came next. The water inside appeared ordinary, clear and still. Aldrich produced a small silver dagger. 1 drop from each candidate, freely given. He handed the blade to Serena first. Without hesitation, she pricked her finger and allowed a single drop of blood to fall into her bowl. The water remained unchanged, which seemed to surprise her. Aldrich brought the dagger to me next. I took it. Its weight surprisingly heavy in my palm. "Be careful, Eliana," Nora warned quietly. "Blood magic reveals truths beyond our conscious knowledge. Are you prepared for what might be revealed?" Was I? These past days had been a whirlwind of revelations and challenges, each pushing me further from the life I'd known. Did I truly want to know if some cosmic force had bound me to a man I barely knew? My grandmother's pendant seemed to warm against my skin, as if answering my unspoken question. I thought of Rhys, not the Alpha King with his power and politics, but the man who'd looked at me with wonder in the moonlight, who'd feared for my safety during the trials, who'd offered me the choice to walk away. I pricked my finger and watched a single drop of blood fall into the water. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the water began to glow with soft silver light, swirling gently though no breeze disturbed the room. The light grew brighter, illuminating my face and casting dancing shadows on the walls. From the water rose a delicate mist that formed shapes in the air above. A wolf running beneath a full moon, a woman with her hand outstretched. The two forms circling each other in an endless dance of approach and retreat. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even Aldrich appeared stunned. "Impossible," he breathed. I glanced at Serena's bowl, still ordinary water, unremarkable and unchanged. Her face had drained of color, her confident pose crumbling at the edges. "What does it mean?" I asked, unable to look away from the mesmerizing dance of light and shadow above my bowl. "It means," said a deep voice from the doorway, "that the ceremony was right." Rhys stood there, magnificent in his anger, his eyes fixed on Aldrich. "You overstepped, old friend. The trials are sacred. To manipulate them for political gain is sacrilege." Aldrich straightened, defiance in the set of his shoulders. "The council has a duty to ensure the strongest possible mate for the Alpha King. Lady Serena's bloodline has nothing to do with the mate bond," Rhys interrupted, stepping into the room. His gaze moved to my bowl, where the mystical display continued unabated. "The magic has spoken twice now. Only a fool would continue to question it." As he moved toward me, the shapes above my bowl responded. The wolf growing larger, more defined, its movements more urgent as it circled the human figure. When Rhys stood beside me, the water's glow intensified until it was almost blinding. "This is the true reflection," Nora explained, awe in her voice. "The rarest response the water can give, not seen in generations." Rhys's hand found mine, his fingers entwining with mine in a gesture both protective and possessive. "The trial of heart is complete," he announced. "By ancient law and magic's decree, I claim Eliana Reed as my true mate." Serena moved then, desperation replacing shock on her perfect features. "You can't do this. Our families have an understanding. A century of alliance hangs in the balance." "Your family's alliance was never dependent on a mating," Rhys replied, his voice level but firm. "If it was, then it wasn't truly an alliance at all, was it?" Color flooded her cheeks. "You'll regret this. When she withers and dies while you remain unchanged, you'll remember this moment and wish you'd chosen differently." Something dangerous flashed in Rhys's eyes. "Be careful, Serena. You speak of my mate now, not a political inconvenience." She recoiled as if struck, then gathered her dignity around her like a cloak. "My father will hear of this." With that final threat, she swept from the room, leaving a charged silence in her wake. Aldrich cleared his throat. "The trials are complete," he acknowledged grudgingly. "The council recognizes Eliana Reed as the Alpha King's chosen mate." One by one, the council members bowed their heads in acknowledgement. Some reluctantly, others like Nora with genuine pleasure. They filed out, leaving Rhys and me alone with the still glowing water. "You shouldn't have been here," I said once the door closed behind them. Aldrich said the king wasn't permitted to witness this trial. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Technically, I didn't witness the trial itself, only its conclusion." His expression sobered. Dominic informed me of Aldrich's last-minute changes. I couldn't let you face that alone. I would have managed, I said, surprising myself with how much I believed it. I know. His eyes held admiration as they studied my face. But you shouldn't have had to, not anymore. The water's glow began to fade, the mystical shapes dissipating into the air like morning mist. Rhys reached out, his fingers brushing the pendant at my throat. Your grandmother's gift protected you through all 3 trials, he said softly. I think perhaps she knew more than she revealed. About what? About you. About your destiny. His hand moved to cup my cheek. About us, perhaps. The thought was dizzying, that my grandmother, seemingly ordinary and human, might have somehow foreseen this moment, that the pendant had been her way of ensuring I'd survive to reach it. What happens now? I asked, leaning slightly into his touch. Now? Something warm and wicked flashed in his eyes. Now we formalize what the ceremony and trials have confirmed, if that's what you want. Despite everything we'd been through, despite the magic's confirmation, he was still offering me a choice. The realization made my heart swell with unexpected emotion. And if I said no? I tested, watching his reaction carefully. Pain flickered across his features, quickly masked, but unmistakable. Then you would walk away, free to return to your life, and I would respect your decision, though it would not be my preference. Such careful, diplomatic words for what I could see was a much rawer emotion. In that moment, I understood what the trial of heart had truly revealed. Not just that some mystical compatibility existed between us, but that my human heart had already begun to care deeply for this complex, powerful man who looked at me as if I were something precious rather than something lacking. And what would be your preference? I asked, stepping closer until I could feel the heat of him, see the faint silver ring around his ice-blue irises, his control visibly frayed, his voice dropping to a register that sent shivers along my spine. That you stay, that you accept the bond between us, that you become not just my mate but my queen, helping me bridge the worlds we both inhabit. I thought of my quiet life before, the safety of my routines, the comfort of my invisibility. Then I thought of the past 3 days. The fear, yes, but also the exhilaration of discovery, of connection, of finally finding where I belonged. My hand came up to cover his where it still rested against my cheek. I stay, I said simply. The words had barely left my lips before his mouth claimed mine. A kiss that started gentle but quickly blazed into something more desperate, as if he'd been holding himself back from this moment since I'd woken in his arms 3 nights ago. When we finally parted, both breathless, his forehead rested against mine. There will still be challenges, he warned. The council will accept our mating because they must, but some like Aldrich will continue to look for ways to undermine you. Serena's family may cause political difficulties. And, his voice caught slightly, there is the matter of our lifespans to consider. One challenge at a time, I said, smiling up at him, starting with the most pressing, his eyebrow arched in question. Getting to know the man I'm apparently destined to spend my life with, I clarified. The rest we'll face together, however much time we have. Something like peace settled over his features. Perhaps the first true peace he'd known in centuries of duty and politics. Together, he agreed. As his lips found mine again, my pendant warmed between us. Not with protective magic this time, but with the simple radiance of a promise fulfilled. Your heart sees what others cannot, my grandmother had said. And finally, I understood exactly what she meant.